Hi guys, thank you for joining us. This is Kris Langworthy. She is your everyday blue jeans and sweatshirt type mama.
Except for today.
Yeah, except for today. She dressed up for you guys. That's awesome. When she isn't trying to figure out what to make for supper, you'll probably find her reading another personal health development book or helping another individual or organization incorporate strategies to activate success. Kris is the founder and owner of Impact Zone Strategies, a personal leadership development company. She is passionate about individuals and organizations being equipped with the confidence and ability to activate success in everyday life. She enjoys incorporating stories from her experiences as a nurse manager, clinical nurse instructor, employee chaplain, leadership consultant, and mom to provide inspirational and enjoyable learning opportunities for her clients. She enjoys teaching individuals and organizations how to implement positive, yet simple and practical real-life changes that will vitalize their entire life and organization. Thank you so much for joining us, Kris. We're so excited to have you come join us at LivFearlessly vlog and tell us a little bit more about your story and all those things, that fears and all the things that hold us back that we get through. And I just want to say thank you for your time today. How's your week going?
Really well, really well. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here as today, especially as we'll talk about in a minute. It's kind of a significant day for our family. So we'll talk about that as you lead it. So, but yeah.
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, so glad that you're here, especially on today. Today is such an amazing time for us to be here, talk about your story and learn more about you and your family. So I always like to start out with something that is relatable to the viewers and telling us something that's interesting about yourself. So tell us something that's interesting about your life and anything that you want to share that's specifically your family.
Well, should we jump into the story of the day or should we save that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, interesting tidbit, maybe not as relatable. First thing is relatable is I'm a mom, right? All of us are moms, or a lot of us are moms, not all of us, but mom who wished she had a manual when her kids was born because nobody gave me a manual. I'm like, okay, this beautiful baby. Okay, now what do I do with it? And I hope I don't destroy it, or I hope I don't hurt something. It's like,
right.
Greatest joy of your life and the greatest fear moment to talk about living fearlessly. It's like, oh my gosh. And so to walk through that, and then 12 years ago today, as you and I have talked about, 12 years ago today, our oldest daughter was diagnosed with cancer and had her first surgery. And so you go from that exhilaration of holding that new baby and that excitement of everything and to sending your baby back into the operating room with 4 neurosurgeons and telling you that they're not sure what's going to happen. That her tumor was enmeshed into her brainstem and pushing up on her cerebellum. And, just like, oh my gosh, what's this day going to end like? We have a healthy, she had headaches and had the different symptoms of having a brain tumor, but definitely wasn't paralyzed, could talk and walk and, see. And they had warned us of everything that could happen in surgery because they were messing with some pretty delicate stuff when you're messing with the brainstem. So, talk about living fearlessly and just going, oh my gosh, what are we going to see at the end of today? So that's probably not as relatable. I hope not as relatable. I don't want any mom to go through that, but yeah.
And how old was your daughter at the time of surgery?
She was 12. So she was in seventh grade.
Oh, that's crazy. So 12 years ago today when she was 12.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
just like more interesting.
Is it? Yeah. If we were December 12th, it'd be even weirder, but no, it's not.
Yeah. Right. So at one point in conversation, something that I think also is not really relatable, but it's really interesting about you from our conversation that we initially had was that you mentioned The Sound of Music to me. And so elaborate on that for people because I thought that was so interesting.
Oh, funny. So The Sound of Music was one of my favorite movies as a young girl. But the funny part was I always related to that in that Julia Andrews, wanted to be a nun and then ended up being this mom of all these kids. And the funny story, my friends always give me a hard time. They're like, yeah, right. But I wanted to be a nun when I was a little girl. And I was enthralled with the regalia of all their attire and everything. And I thought it was so romantic to be married to God. And and I wanted to be like Maria. I wanted to be a nun, and then got swept off my feet by, mine was not at a Navy man, or I don't remember what he was, but mine was an engineer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I kind of have a little bit of, I love that movie. I love everything about it. And I love the freedom of her swinging and singing on the top of the hills, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, like she had a lot of kids, and you have, was it 6 kids?
6 kids, yeah.
You have 6 kids, right?
Yeah. I think she
had,
had,
and in the midst
I don't
of
even
that,
remember how many she had. Did she have 8? I don't even,
I think it might have been 8. I'm not quite sure. But like you said, being in the midst of, motherhood and learning all those things. And then here you are going through this very traumatic, scary, very fearful time with one of your children. And at the age of 12, where that's a sensitive age in itself.
Right.
And then your daughter is going through all these changes and all these scary things all together. Like, I can't even imagine all of that going on, and the fear that you might have had with that as the mom, and having all these other kids to take care of as well, and kind of manning the ship of everything, everyone's emotions, and kind of helping everyone through it. So,
you know what just struck me at this moment, Rebecca, is kind of this thought of, I kind of was like the man in that show in The Sound of Music, where he had the drill sergeant. Everybody called me Commander Kris when Sarah was in treatment. So maybe there is a little more resemblance to that movie than I thought. That's funny.
Right.
Because I had to, it was a season where I'm not naturally a real structured, very, I tend to be a little more free flow. And during that season, I had to be a little more intense. That the way I dealt with my fear, actually, probably as much as anything, is there was things that had to be done and had to go through.
Right. And you had to do them. Like you're Mama Bear, like whatever needed to be done, you were there to do it. Like you had to be there, and you stepped up, and you were who Sarah needed in that time, and who your whole family needed during that time. So absolutely. I love when I talk to people about their stories and they think that this specific thing is just something fun to talk about, when in reality it's carried through, and it is a specific part of your story that, like you said, like you just thought of that.
Yeah.
So
well, and I think it's, for the other thing, what I do business wise is, people don't know what's in them. They don't know what they're capable of until they face that situation. And I think that's where you and I really resonated really quick and easily when we met, is just we both have that passion for getting outside your box and doing things that you never thought you could do. And gal, if you would have told me 25 years ago I was going to have a child diagnosed with cancer, I would have been like, no way, I can't do that. I can't do it. And that you and I are capable of so much more than we know. And that's what I love to do business wise now, is walk alongside people and help them unlock what's in them. That you've got stuff, you've got potential inside you. You've got what it takes for success. Let me come alongside you and help you unlock it. And that's what we did for our daughter during that season, is walked beside her through some tough stuff. I can remember the day she's like, I don't want to do radiation anymore. I just don't want to do it anymore. And she was just done. And it was like, okay, let's walk this through. Let's talk it through. Let's grieve it. Let's process it. But you're capable of doing this. You can do tough stuff. You can do tough stuff. And that's what I love to do with people. And I think that was the crazy part of her being in treatment, is I felt like I came alive at a whole new level because I had to. It drew something out of me that I was like, oh my gosh, I love doing this for people. I love coming alongside them and reminding Sarah, no, you can do this. You can do this. You've got the ability to do this. You're a fighter. You can do this. And you can, push past the fear, because sometimes living fearlessly isn't saying that there isn't any fear.
Yep.
It's acknowledging the fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love it. So, okay. So let's talk about your fears specifically. So, in this whole process and everything that you were going through, the fear is obviously something that might have held you down before that. So how do you get past that? And tell us how you personally feel about yourself during the time of fear that you had.
I think my fear prior to that is I was always afraid people would reject me. I didn't want that pain of somebody not understanding why I did something, or
Right.
Pursuing something that people really, I wanted to explain to them. I kind of have a teacher heart in me too. And it's like, I want to explain why I'm doing it or whatever. And some of that's a little bit of a protection mechanism, right? Because if I get you to understand and buy into why I'm doing it, then at least you're not as likely to reject me, or you're not as likely to dislike me, because we all like to be liked. We all want to be appreciated and whatnot. And during that season, there was such an intensity to it. I had to push past it. But you can know that there was nights at home or in your bed where there's tears running down your face because you just were really intense with your daughter. Or, one of my biggest fears was abandoning my kids. It was like that I wouldn't be a good mom, that I wouldn't be a mom who was there for her kids. And there was nights when I was at the hospital with Sarah and my little ones at home didn't have a mommy there to tuck them in. And that was hard. Those were hard. There were a lot of tears during those points because, you're torn between two spaces. And how do you do with that? Sometimes you just got to suck it up and do it. And then you get to the other side and you see that it's okay. And sometimes you just don't want to do it,
Right.
So I don't know if I have the magic bullet. I think the magic bullet for me was really seeing the end result and knowing, I just kept having this line go through me that it's going to be worth it when it's done. It'll be worth it when it's done. That we're going, I talk to people about knowing the vision that you're going after, and that you have to go through tough stuff to get there sometimes. And it's like, okay, is this worth what's at the other side?
Right.
And what is the end result for my kids? My kids are going to know that I still love them. My kids are going to know, someday they'll look back on this season. And actually we've been reflecting on that a lot the last couple of days because we're in that season, but Mom, I didn't understand why you couldn't be with us and stuff like that. But to keep that end target in mind when you're facing that short-term discomfort, I think is probably the key that I'm still learning that, right? I'm still learning, like, when it's time to get up and exercise and I don't want to, I have to do it. I have to remember the end target.
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, that's a fair point too. The fact that, here's Sarah who needed you absolutely at that time. And then you have your other kids that still needed you, but you have to figure out the balance between where your energy needs to be the most, where it's going to be most fulfilling, all those kinds of things. But I mean, the thing that I took away from that is that you were showing your kids how when they need you, you will be there. Yeah. In the very hardest times, like, you're their mom, you will be there for whatever strength that you need to hold for them. Right. And like, that's what I picture right away. I'm like, well, if I was one of your kids, I'd be like, wow, she stood by and like did the hard stuff. Like, it's not easy, something that they would know as young kids, but growing up and looking back at it, like, those are the things that they will see.
Yeah. And, it occurs to me too, that one of the other things I had to do is I'm a nurse by trade. I don't know if I've said that at this point anytime today or not, but I'm also trained as a nurse. But there was times where I had to let go of some of the control and let go of some of the things in the midst of that too. In the midst of that, I'm also pregnant, and had a baby halfway through treatment. And so, Faith was born, our daughter Faith was born when Sarah was about halfway through treatment, and I have C-section babies, so I had to stay home, and I had to be able to take my fingers of control off of some of the things sometimes, and allowing my husband to take her to some of the treatments, and allowing him to, even though I'm the medical person, allowing him to do some of the things and not have to be the super strong one all the time. And I think sometimes that's kind of a scary place, because sometimes if I can micromanage it, it's almost like I have control and then I'm not as afraid. But if I have to take my fingers off, that's a whole new level of bravery, I think. And, saying, okay, I can't be there for this appointment. We can't
do it all. We just can't do it all.
You can't.
And the fact that your husband was your support system, the person that you could, help do the other things. And I'm sure you had other relationships that, you know, came and went. So that brings us to our next question too, is, you know, when we break free from, you know, the fear and moving forward into a new direction of positivity and those things, relationships and friendships, they shift and change. How did that go with your family and everything that you guys went through at that time?
There was some tough moments. There was some real moments, because you know, even though you're an adult, you still are your parents' child. And so there was tough moments, and there was, you know, moments where there was some conflict with that and not understanding. And to their defense, I can't imagine having a grandchild go through cancer, because I think it would be even more powerless feeling than having a child in cancer, because at least as the parent, you're so involved and you're so intense and you're so doing that you don't even have time to think. But I think, you know, for grandparents, I think that would be really hard. And for the kids, it shifted a dynamic for the kids, you know, where having other people take care of them. You know, talk about people around you, learning to receive from other people, because I can tell you, like, our youngest at the time, not the one I was pregnant with, but the youngest at the time was 4 years old. Yeah, one of the other ones. Our band teacher. There's another one of you guys. One of the teachers said Hannah was in preschool. And so she knew that Hannah would fall asleep on the bus on the way home from preschool, and that grandma and grandpa would be here, but she would drive Hannah home. And it was a small little private school, a little parochial school. And this teacher would sometimes drive her home so that she could have some little extra TLC, and that for me to let go, to let other people love on my kids and let other people do things. You know, I'm a pretty strong, confident woman. And so learning to step back and not have to be, and let other people love on you and let other people support you in a hard time. You know, that's kind of a vulnerable place. You know, Brené Brown talks about living wholeheartedly and being almost like naked, right? And feeling like that's the bravest thing you can do, is when you're actually vulnerable and say, hey, I need some help. Yeah. And be able to say that. And so it shifted. It definitely put a strain on relationships, because everybody's game shifts at a different level. Different people grieve, different people process stress differently. Some people just go into mama bear mode. Some people go shutdown mode. You know, it definitely, I have a new empathy for families that go through major crisis, because it pushes your fracture points all over the place. Yeah.
I can't even imagine, and I hope I never have to, but the people that I know that have gone through similar situations with their children, it's frightening, very frightening. But like you said, there's lessons in all of it, and getting through those fears and the break points. But I love that you call it a season.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, so what I've really realized is I look at my life more and more as a season, different seasons. It's like, okay, what season am I in now? This is not going to last forever. We will come through this, and, you know, the sun will shine again, you know, the rain will come again. You know, I'm looking outside as it's starting to snow here today, and, you know, it's like summer will return. Yeah. And there, you know, but I think if I can look at hard times as seasons, it gives me hope and it gives me strength, because it's like, okay, I can do this for a season, right? I have such a rich appreciation for my friends that go through, you know, they have child that has long-term disabilities. I mean, that's a longer season, right? A different season than what we went through. And so, but that, you know, I'm in a season of building a business. I've been in a season of, I don't have any children at home during the day anymore, you know, and just different. When I had just the little ones at home, it was like, okay, this is my season of being at home with my babies. I won't be forever. It'll, you know, and I'm a farmer's daughter, you know, I was raised on the farm. And so, and that's what I love about Minnesota. You know, there's always a new season coming. There's always a new season, and it gives you hope. And you may not know which season it is at all. For sure. So you're ready for anything, which is a good lesson to learn too. It's not always predictable as spring, summer, fall. Right. It's not always the way that it goes, which is a great lesson. sometimes they overlap too, right?
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. So, okay, so I mean, you've went through a lot of different fear and all those things. So like advice for people that are listening that about overcoming. So what kind of advice would you give people with overcoming fear in general, or specifically if there's any parents that listen to this that also are going through some kind of a struggle with a treatment or health issues with a child, any advice you want to give on getting over that? Maybe it's asking for help or whatever that might be.
One thing that's just really become really key to me is years ago, I had somebody say to me, and it was kind of an interesting setting, but they said this thing about, it's not about you, Kris. And I was like, okay, what? And learning not to take people's reactions when you're in stressful spots as a criticism or a condemnation or a rejection of you. It's their stress and their stuff. And that understanding, my husband processes stress totally differently than I do. And
Right.
that when he reacts the way he does, he's not telling me my reaction is bad. He's not telling me my way of doing life is wrong. It's not about me. It's about him. And I think that's the thing, because I call them offenses, where we have offenses show up in relationships, right? Where I'm so offended you did that, or I'm so offended that they did this, or and my biggest advice is kind of get out of your own way, get over yourself, and recognize other people have their stuff too. And just give them the space and the grace to walk through it. And just to remember that at the end of the day, that person's not your enemy. You know, just because my husband handles it differently than me does not make him my enemy.
Right.
We're both two people trying to navigate something that we've never navigated before.
Yeah.
And we're both trying to learn how to do it in a way that's successful at the same time. And we're different people. We have different fingerprints. We have different ways of handling it. And just to give people some space and grace. But when we get stressed, we tend to get really tunneled.
Yeah.
And we tend to only see our way. And I think if we can take a deep breath and remember to take care of yourself a little bit and take some time, know yourself well enough. That's one of the other things I work with people is, know what your energizer is, because what energizes you isn't what energizes me.
Yeah.
I have a girlfriend who loves to go putz in the garden. That totally energizes her. That actually sucks me dry. Okay. It's not going to work. But know yourself well enough to know what works for you, and then take care of yourself, because it starts with you taking care of yourself, because I can't take care of you if I'm not taking care of me. And that was one of the things I had to learn when Sarah was in treatment. There was times that I really struggled with some resentment and anger and just fatigue. And I realized that when I struggled with those moments, it was usually because I was tired and I hadn't taken some time just to pull away, whether that was just to go out for 15-minute walk or whatever. I needed to do some self-care.
Yeah.
And so that would be my encouragement to anybody, is know yourself well enough, to do some self-care. Know what your behavioral style is, know who you are, and take care of yourself a little bit. That's not selfish. The heart has to feed itself before it can feed the body. We're so used to the oxygen thing that we don't even see it. But for me, it's like the heart feeds itself first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And like you said, the self-care part, what's the saying? We can't pour from an empty cup. And to think, if you were just pouring into the situation with Sarah, like you were just giving everything you had to Sarah, not taking care of yourself, you would be burnt out, not only for you, but for the rest of your family as well. But most importantly for yourself too, especially because you were pregnant and everything too, in the process of all of it. So the self-care part is huge. I totally agree on that. And like you said, it could be something as little as just making sure you're sleeping or eating or taking a bath, like something to calm you, and find something that's for you and your behavior is, like you said, know
yourself well enough. And that's part of what I do with the consulting company now, is I help people with knowing what's their driver. I've got a pretty high level assessment that helps people identify what is their driving force, what is their motivator. And so that is what energizes you. So for me, it shows up. I love to learn. And so that was one of the things I did when Sarah was in treatment, is I learned more about some brain tumors than I ever cared to know ever again. But that energized me because it empowered me. it made me feel stronger. So what
Right.
is
You
it
weren't
that
clueless
empowers?
about it.
Exactly. What is it that empowers you? And let's do it, let's
Yeah.
find a way to do that. And that's, it's again, where I like how you said it. It's not this little piece of my story. It actually is, it is part of the whole story. It really,
Yeah.
it affects the whole season of my, or not the whole season. It affects all the seasons. That's what I should say, of my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay. So with where you were 12 years ago and where you are today, I want to know, like, I'm a big dreamer. So let's dream about, like, where are you going to be in the next 5 years? You're living your life fearlessly. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years, that's going to be crazy because I'm just about going to have the baby out of the house. So I can't even imagine what that's going to look like in one breath. But the big vision that I have is I want to be able to travel around. I want to speak to groups and speak to women and parents about, you can do tough stuff. You can do things that you never thought you could do. And if I can pay it forward, help people understand the power of their dream. I mean, again, that's where you and I connected right off the heart, because it's like, if you understand the power of the dream. I mean, the night before Sarah's surgery, I have this image of her healthy and whole on a college campus. And
Yes.
oh my gosh, what that did for me and igniting that. And so where do I want to be in 5-12 years? I want to be, number one, I want to see my kids living their dreams. I want to see, that's my, that's every mama's heart, right? I think, is to see their babies living full. I want to see my children living confident, competent lives. That's what I want to see in 5 years. I want to see them just thriving. I want to see my marriage thriving and my husband and I working together and enjoying. I mean, we're totally different people, but doing the thing that brings us life. And for me, that's going to look like, I want to do more of these kind of one-to-ones. I want to sit down with people and just inspire them to go after tough stuff and just be their cheerleader, and then celebrate with them when they get there. Just like, this is so cool to me that we get to celebrate this moment together today. I mean, I'm just loving the fact that this fell on, that we're recording this today. It's like a celebration moment. And so this brings me joy, and that would be a great dream fulfilled to do that as we go forward.
Absolutely. Well, I'm over the moon that it happened, that we were ready to record today, and that everything is going great. You're having a fantastic day, and 12 years later, that's awesome. And who knows what the next 5 years is going to bring, but I guarantee that you are going to be helping amazing people do amazing things and stepping into their greatness, because I love your energy, and there's just no way it's not happening. So I'm so excited that you took the time.
I love that vote of confidence. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Absolutely. And I just want to say again, like, thank you for taking the time from this day where you are reflecting and going through all these things with your family, and, rehashing a lot of that on this day, because that's so, I'm grateful that you took the time to come on and share your story today of all days. Yeah. So thank you so much. And I would just want to leave with one thing that you want to tell people. Where can they find you to connect with you? That's what I would like to know.
Where they can find me right now is email is probably the best, or a phone call. Email would be, and I don't know if you put a link underneath where you put it or what, but Kris, Kris, at impactzonestrategies.com. And, let me just quick say why I chose Impact Zone. Can I say that, Rebecca?
Go ahead.
Impact Zone is,
you can leave them with this last message. Tell them why.
There we go. So the Impact Zone is the place in a wave for a surfer that holds the maximum potential. It is the place where they can either have the ride of their life, or they can be crushed by it, but there will always be another wave coming. And so can you get back up and go after the next wave, even if you're crushed by this one? That back to the seasons thing, that there's another wave coming. So it's okay. Sometimes you ride them out, sometimes you don't, but that, Impact Zone Strategies is here to help you navigate those waves. We want to help you navigate that wave. So Kris at impactzonestrategies.com would be the perfect place to grab me, or else on Facebook. I'm Kris Langworthy, Kris Langworthy, LANGWORTHY.
Awesome. I love that you gave that description of the wave. That's super fun.
Yeah.
And it's totally a great metaphor of life.
Right. And that there's another wave coming. You can ride it,
Yeah, absolutely.
You might ride this one halfway through, and you might feel like you failed, but you didn't.
Yep.
You're going to get back up and you're going to go after it again. And there's another wave coming. There's another, you got this. There's another one coming, and you're going to have some fun. You got some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Everyone, make sure that you love yourself and live fearlessly. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Rebecca.